land at the airport, drive to the theater, and then walk to the stage. There had never been a star like her. Along with her Emmy and Oscar, she possessed a body that refused to quit. At 79 years old, Liza Minnelli is completely unrecognizably herself. Having endured 5 unhappy marriages, she has spent many years confined to a wheelchair. At long last, her true colors are shining through. Her mother, Judy Garland, used to think her daughter looked stunning in miniskirts, but now she has trouble walking. You won't believe your eyes when you see the Cabaret star's new look. As challenging as Liza Minnelli's childhood was, it was also fraught with peril. At the tender age of 9, she found herself responsible for an overwhelming responsibility that no child should ever have to face. Judy Garland's mother was warned by a doctor in 1955 that taking more than 2 Nembutal pills daily could result in her death. So Judy would think she was taking more. Liza started opening the pills and pouring out most of the powder. Instead, she substituted sugar. Her little sister Lorna stepped in to lend her a hand. They did this weekly. It became second nature, like doing the dishes or mopping the floor, but it was vital to their mother's survival. Furthermore, it altered Liza's perception of the ordinary. As she put it in an interview given years later, it wasn't and isn't easy to live a so-called normal life. This was a feeling she experienced physically and mentally. Just like her mother, Liza was teased for having a small waist, long legs, and a large chest. The head of MGM, Louis B. Mayer, referred to Judy Garland as "my little hunchback." The studio environment was detrimental to her appearance. From a young age, Liza shared these sentiments. The same cruel things kept echoing in her head as she reflected in the mirror. During an interview in Europe in the 1970s, someone inquired about her reaction to being called ugly. This was not shocking to her. It had become second nature to her. She had taken on her mother's suffering. The biographers claim that the 2 women lived with a pervasive sense of insecurity. In their relationships, they both sought out father figures. It was an early trend, and it never really abated. Something very strange happened when Liza was a little girl. Judy Garland threatened suicide in 1954 when she was 8 years old. In the bathroom, she barricaded herself. Liza clung to it. Long periods of time elapsed. Anxiety prevailed. She proceeded to cut the screen with scissors before climbing inside. Judy had not yet passed away. She flushed a bottle of aspirin down the drain. It was all for show, not an attempt at suicide. What was it? Liza had a clue. Afterwards, she clarified that her only desire was to be acknowledged. She distinctly heard her mother's laughter. For Judy, even that type of moment was all part of the performance. Because her family life was so chaotic, Liza was never truly settled anywhere for very long. She never stopped moving. She changed schools 14 times. Most of the time, her mom was really poor. Her father, the director, Vincent Minnelli, was rarely present. On occasion, Liza would stay with her aunt, Kay Thompson, who was a singer and writer. The famous character Eloise, created by Thompson, was based on Liza. The little girl with the grown-up habits lived at the Plaza Hotel. Her name was Eloise. You met Liza. Growing up, she spent a lot of time in hotels. Her own room was not available to her. She had access to numerous rooms, lounges, and hallways. In the early 60s, Liza set out on a quest to discover who she was. Being known as Judy Garland's daughter wasn't all she aspired to. 2 men helped her. Among them was the French-Armenian singer Charles Aznavour. Liza was taken aback by his performance. She thought he was handsome. To accompany her, she begged him. "Yes," he replied. After that, she didn't perform again until she showed him the performance. More than just singing, he instructed her in other things as well. One of them was Tony Bennett. He worked with her to improve her stability, control, and stage presence. Those were the most crucial lessons for 1965 and 1966. The 19-year-old Liza made a concerted effort to prove that her identity extended beyond her surname. the same year that she starred as Flora the Red Menace, 1965. Songs for their debut show were written by Kander and Ebb. It was Liza's early 20s. Even though the show only ran for 87 performances, her performance was unforgettable. She took home the Tony for her performance in a musical. She broke the record for youngest woman to receive that honor. A few years back, she was caught sleeping on park seats. She was now penniless after spending all her money in the Big Apple. She landed her first off-Broadway role in 1962 at the tender age of 16 in the play Best Foot Forward. She kept going even after breaking her ankle during practice. From that section, 500,000 copies of a song were sold. Even though she worked very hard for it, her rise was rapid. They were never really friendly, despite Judy Garland's 1965 backstage assistance. The world witnessed a joyful mother. It took Liza a long time to warm up to her mom's music. It was not a lack of care on her part. Rather, she simply did not want to do them since they were not hers. In 1999, she addressed the matter during her Broadway show, Minnelli on Minnelli. If you're going to do something that's been done before, come at it from a different point of view. That's exactly what she set out to accomplish. When Liza Minnelli was just 23 years old, she landed her first major film role. By 1969, the year had passed. The Sterile Cuckoo was the name of a film. Her character, Pookie Adams, was a college student who is strange and frail and has strong feelings for a boy named Jerry. The scene setter was a brief phone conversation that lasted only 4 minutes, no more than that. No wounds. She was alone with her sorrow, her expressions, and her eyes. Despite her best efforts, the relationship is crumbling. Director Alan J. Pakula stood aside and let the action unfold. He continued filming. Because of that decision, the scene seemed more realistic, as if we were listening to an unauthorized sound. It lacked enthusiasm and volume. No one was there. Raw. Very uncomfortable. The scene is now taught in film schools worldwide, not because of her words, but because of the impact she had with so few. However, a horrible event occurred just prior to the release of The Sterile Cuckoo. In 1969, June 22nd, Liza's mother passed away. She had gone on 47 years. London was her previous abode. It was a result of accidentally taking too many barbiturates. This startled Liza. It would be unbelievable to her. Following this, she remarked, "She'll never pass." However, she was moved to tears by the veracity of the news. She wept non-stop for a fortnight. Michael Feinstein, her friend, said the accident was horrific. The timing of the loss was catastrophic. Her film was going to be released soon. Her name was making waves in Hollywood. However, her mother was oblivious to the whole thing. Where there ought to have been joy, the narrative descended into tragedy. It was a lengthier story. As soon as Liza's mum saw the script for The Sterile Cuckoo, she warned her against playing the role. Judy felt the protagonist was excessively dependent and aggressive, much like her own daughter. However, Liza persisted anyhow. She was so concerned about maintaining her schedule that she even declined the lead role in the Broadway musical Promises, Promises. Patty Duke was considered for the role by Alan Pakula. However, Liza took no action. After landing the role, she wasted no time getting into character. Her performance garnered her an Academy Award nomination. It might win, according to Roger Ebert. The prime of Miss Jean Brodie ultimately went to Maggie Smith. Liza, however, turned up. Those who felt sorry for her allegedly nominated her. That seemed foolish to some. One reviewer remarked, "If you believe that, you either didn't see the film or you didn't understand it." This was in reference to Liza with a Z, a 1972 TV musical featuring Bob Fosse and Liza Minnelli. The filming took place on May 31 at New York's Lyceum Theater. Only 8 weeks of rehearsals had passed. However, Fosse noticed something. Any old DVD won't cut it. He chose 8 16mm film cameras so he could film it in a cinematic style. It was a daring and well-executed decision that set the special apart from other TV programs. The singer covered the cost of the event financially. The fact that Minnelli's clothing were so short caused some concern among the directors. They were worried that the sponsor would get upset if they did this. Regardless, Singer proceeded. The last show took place after an hour. It featured songs from Cabaret as well as favorites like Say Liza, God Bless the Child, and others. Marvin Hamlish composed the music. Costumes were designed by Halston. September 10, 1972 was the air date of its NBC debut. The response was enormous. The show took home 4 Emmys, including 2 for Outstanding Single Program and Outstanding Directing. It was also presented with a Peabody Award. It vanished after that. Twice more before 1973, NBC aired it, but that was the last time. More than 25 years had passed since it had disappeared. An important discovery was made in 1999 by Michael Arick, a video archiver. The ownership of the work was with Liza. The team was able to fix it because of that. To create 5, they utilized recordings of her own voice. One with a 5.1 surround system. By hand, we cleaned every single frame. Liza, spelt with a Z, returned after a long absence. Showtime premiered it on April 1, 2006, following its DVD release. In the same year, they were both featured in Cabaret. Because of it, her life changed. In a 1930s Berlin production, she portrayed singer Sally Bowles. Her performance evoked powerful emotions. Time and Newsweek both featured her in the same week, in February 1972, prior to the release of the film. No one had ever done that before with their art. Then came the awards. At the 45th Academy Awards, which took place on March 27, 1973, she was named Best Actress. The woman's age was 26. She triumphed over Deanna Ross and Cicely Tyson to get Lady Sings the Blues and Sounder, respectively. Her speech included a thank you to her parents, but it was obvious that she was seizing the moment. Following that, she performed even better. She was also honored with the Golden Globe, British Academy Film Award, Spanish St. Geordi Award, and Italian David di Donatello for the same role. Cabaret was an experience unlike any other. It had a dark, sharp edge. It was directed by Bob Fosse in a fast, sharp manner and looked at racism, sexuality, and the rising terror in pre-war Berlin. In response, Minnelli delivered a performance that was emotionally raw, risky, and full of range. Because it combined elements from both the stage and the cinema, the story was more impactful than other shows of the period. It seemed like Liza Minnelli could do anything after her 1972 Oscar win for Cabaret. She was qualified, had experience, and was motivated. However, her film career plummeted after just a short while. Lucky Lady was the 1975 debut. The picture had all the makings of a hit for the studio. $11 million 0-cents budget, Gene Hackman and Beau Bridges as co-stars, and Stanley Donen at the helm. However, it was all in vain. There were others who felt it was wasteful and costly. A lot of effort went into something that people will forget, as Roger Ebert so aptly put it. The story's central three-ways romance was widely disbelieved in. It was a box office bomb. Later that year, 1976, A Matter of Time was released. The film, starring Liza and Ingrid Bergman, was an adorable Rome-themed fantasy. However, behind the scenes, the show was experiencing some problems. A man named Vincent Minnelli, her father, was the director. Despite his Hollywood fame, rumors circulated that he began displaying symptoms of Alzheimer's disease while filming. He intended for his first 3-hour cut to be grand and dramatic. It was rejected by the studio. A version that felt incomplete was released after they cut it to 97 minutes, added awkward stock footage, and subtitled the voices poorly. Vincent was taken aback to the point that he declined to purchase the film. Criticism was overwhelmingly negative. Martin Scorsese bought ad space in the trades as a form of protest against Vincent's treatment. Everyone looked terrible in the eyes of others because of it. The final nail was laid by New York, New York, directed by Martin Scorsese in 1977. Liza Minnelli and Robert De Niro were cast as a couple in it. It was an attempt to combine the bright, glitzy 1950s shows with the somber, realistic 1970s films. Many were perplexed by that combination. It was too lengthy, too depressing, and too confusing to comprehend. The film's performance in theaters was lackluster. It was painful for more than just Liza. Scorsese fell into a deep depression and drug misuse as a result of his failure. It was a major setback in every respect. By 1978, it had already done its thing. The ticket office was reportedly hurt by Minnelli, according to Variety. After hearing that line, she lost all her bankability as a movie star. Her Cabaret success has caused studios to lose interest in hiring her. She had lost 3 in a row, rendering her uninvested. Hollywood progressed. Liza began performing in real life, on stage, and in television. It wasn't until 1983 that she had another major box office success, following Arthur in 1981. At least her reputation took a temporary boost from that. Even though things were going poorly at work, Liza made an effort to advance in her social circle. During the mid-1970s, she visited the Rothschild mansion on the French Riviera. The invitation to join one of Europe's most exclusive clubs was extremely unusual. It was as if she was overjoyed. Attempting to sound clever, she was asked what she would like to drink. She begged for beer and grinned as she described the Rothschild farms. It was an unsuccessful joke. Few people found it funny. When it should have sounded funny, it didn't. It was a minor detail, but it proved Liza didn't belong there. She felt completely out of place among the bankers and lords in the room, despite her Broadway roots. The mayhem persisted upon their return to the A Matter of Time set. Her dad's career as a director came to an end due to this awful film. Company pressure caused a breakdown of what had begun as a respectful relationship between a father and daughter. The final product was completely different from what Vincente had envisioned. The changes diminished its attractiveness. Critics have panned it, calling it dull, overly complicated, and excessive. In addition to being bad for Liza's career, it was bad for her family. As far as anyone knows, no other artist has ever done what she did in 1979. There were 11 sold-out performances at Carnegie Hall, 11 nights. Just a handful of tickets remained. In anticipation of her arrival, a lengthy queue of onlookers formed. Some could be yours for as low as $7.00, $50. On the more expensive end, it was $25.00. However, the most important thing was simply being present, not the cost. A reader thought it was absurd. Rumor has it that Liza was told, "You give everyone hope." That line was on her mind quite a bit. Maybe that was the audience's experience as well. Not merely enjoyment, but a more profound connection. She returned to Carnegie Hall for a 3-week residency after an 8-year absence. Again, every show was completely sold out. On this occasion, a 47-piece orchestra was performing in her background. Everything she wore was handmade by Halston. More than just a musical, the show was an experience. The live album from those performances remained on the Billboard 200 for a duration of 8 weeks. Before she turned things around, it became her biggest hit of the decade. It was in 1989 that Liza Minnelli shot to fame. Her debut album, Results, was completely unique from her previous work. It was created by the Pet Shop Boys and was massive, electric, and ultra-modern. The original song for the first number was Losing My Mind by Stephen Sondheim.